educator for a medical unit and would like to follow up on a patient case that you had recently had. I heard it was a challenging one for you.
Yes, I had a client that was diagnosed with Huntington's disease that was particularly difficult to care for during the last stages of his life.
What's important here is that we establish a culture of safety for this patient and understand that each person has a different life experience that shapes their values and beliefs.
So this was hard for me because this man wasn't able to speak much to communicate and about his needs and what he wanted for his plan of care to look like during this stage of his life. I had a hard time not just thinking of him as the man with Huntington's.
I like that you identified your stereotyping of him. It's important to look past a person's diagnosis and pay attention to your own personal assumptions, values, and beliefs. Although this man is nonverbal, look for other ways of how he communicates what he needs. Using collaborative, knowing, and not knowing strategies is important to listen to and for, as well as looking beyond the surface of what you see when you meet this patient.
So after spending some time with him over the months he was with us, I learned that his biggest concern was pain management and a safe diet. Although I didn't know what his specific cultural background was or any food preferences that were comfortable for him, I did learn what he liked based on his nonverbal cues. It was hard, but learning his verbal cues and body language helped me to understand if the care I was providing was working for his needs.
Excellent. Culture doesn't have to be something foreign to you or a different race or nationality. It can be made up of a patient's personal beliefs, values, and attitudes. This may look like things that bring him comfort, how he prefers to spend his day, or what foods he enjoys the most.
Well, I feel that's something his nurses really worked towards. We wanted to make his plan of care as appropriate to him as possible so that his care reflected what was important for him while he transitioned through this part of his life. It couldn't have been easy for him.
How are economics and access to resources affecting this patient?
Well, from what we've learned through our social worker, this patient doesn't have the best history. He came from a background of drug and alcohol use. He's isolated from his family, who have no involvement in his life for some time. I feel these circumstances have made it challenging for him to seek out care or know what resources and supports are available for him. Financially, he doesn't have much support for his care, so we're making do with what we have available for him.
Absolutely. It's tough when there isn't much support for him, and it appears as though he didn't have access to resources before his admission. It could be, too, that while his disease was early in stages, he didn't know how to identify his changing mental health or physical decline. This patient had a really tough disease to manage. I agree it would be very hard for him to mentally and physically manage that. Sometimes we view the mind and body as separate entities. This is called the Cartesian view. Not only are we there to treat his physical needs of the disease process, but also his mind and mental health.
Yeah, I agree. I've learned that his mental health is something that shows to be affected first, before any of the physical aspects became apparent. We did an in-service with a member of the Huntington Society and learned so much about this disease.
Things like these in-services are helpful to nursing staff. We gain more knowledge about how this affects the patient's way of life and how we best support their needs individually.
Definitely. So this patient was obviously very challenging for me. I've learned that self-reflection is a tool I should utilize more. Mostly reflect on my own values and beliefs, but also to see how those changes as I meet more people and learn about their cultural beliefs as well. So what makes them who they are. Each time I care for this patient, I feel I did a better job at respecting what he needed in his care and how I could better support those things.
Exactly. To practice cultural safety, it is important that we don't draw conclusions on someone based on how they first appear to us. We should be sensitive to their own values and needs and be competent on how to provide cultural safe care.
So next time I have a patient assignment that involves practicing this type of care, then I will make sure to seek out resources, things like this in service, so that I have more tools to better understand the person.
And remember to make those tools individualized to each patient. Not every patient has the same cultural beliefs and values, even though they appear to present the same. We can always ask the patient how we can make their care personal to them.
I will remember that. I really appreciate you following up with me about this patient care. It was a hard one, but I will remember to be more sensitive to individual culture, whatever that may look like for the patient.
No problem at all. Feel free to contact me if there's anything in the future you'd like to discuss about patient-centered care on our unit.